Hello, everyone. We're going to have a consciousness talk, a higher consciousness talk with Lee Mudway, so Lee can also express his opinions and perspectives and all of the goodies. We don't have any agenda, so it just flows with whatever more or less comes up here with us. But of course, it directly pertains to this time that we are in. So just waiting for Lee to join, and we'll get into it. Before that, we are indeed in, despite of everything you see and you feel out there, we are in the most glorious, auspicious times. We're in this process to create this new, beautiful reality for all. And you know what this process involves is unprecedented things for everyone. Unprecedented, let's say, to the extents and degrees of the human experience. And it's on such a wide scale, and it's getting wider and bigger, with every day, with one's realizing that there is something very special and good what is occurring upon the planet. So if you're here, brother, I believe it comes up in the... Yes, I've sent an invite. Check your notifications, and if not, request to join, brother. We'll get her here. One of these will work. So we're just. I think I see something. No, we're still just waiting for Lee to come in. I'll send another invite. Yeah. Hey, Terry, nice to have you here. Lee and I are going to have a great chat and discussion once we get this figured out again. With Facebook Live, so that we can bring Lee on. So I'm on my phone. Let's see, I'm going to do a search here again to allow for Lee to come in. Just give a few moments, and hi Natalie, and this will be an enjoyable show. I can guarantee and ascertain that. So just bear with us and practice your patience while you're waiting. I'm smoking, it's added to free, mostly organic tobacco, and that's what I smoke. And for anyone, there's Lee. Yeah, we're still... Facebook will make this so much easier, so in the very near future. That is for sure. What's this one? All right. Try this once again. Well, we did it before Lee and I was on here, so let's see. Yeah, so a lot of wonky energetic things occurring, electrical and magnetic for the more sensitive ones that are able to feel this on the on the on the energetic level, and of course others. If you're wondering what's occurring, everything upon the planet is being affected at this time for very good reasons. So just everyone bear with it and keep going forward. Okay, I see something here. Mariana. This must be Lee. Let's try. Okay, this should be Lee coming in here shortly. We're just in the process of adding. Hey, there you are, brother.
Hold on, my friend. Hold on. This has been a little bit of a trek.
There you are, brother.
Hold on, my friend. Hold on. This has been a little bit of a trek.
There you are, brother.
Hold on, my friend. Hold on. This has been a little bit of a trek. I'm upside down and sideways.
That has to do with the magnetic and electrical of the planet at this time.
Sorry. Right, let's get this working. Give me a second.
Yeah, all is well and perfect. Yeah, so as many of you know, so many things have been transpiring again in so many good ways on the planet. And, you know, I constantly put out what I can and on this timeline and to whatever effect I can. But of course, there's so much more occurring. And, you know, as I share and express, there's just really no way that I could write it all. For if I was writing it all, I have no time to, let's say, keep co-creating the new things. How do you feel there now, brother?
I think we're good, my friend. I think we're good. Is it? Somewhere near anyway.
Yeah, I can hear you well. Excellent. Yeah, it's good. So, quite an eventful day here, Lee. You know, when I get up this morning, empathically in what I could feel, when I get up this morning from the collective and also from the world, you know, what I could feel out there was a giving up of hope. You know, one's questioning their self. What, you know, are we making any headway in this world? What is the point of being here? So I could also feel the depression from the outside. And I say this is from the outside because I know what and who I am and how I have done all of my inner work. And when these feelings, let's say of depression, are no longer inside, then we know and we gauge that it's coming from the outside. And with all the inner work, once you have that all done, when you feel it, then you know it's coming from another or from the outside. You wish to share anything on that, brother?
I'm so grateful for you, brother. I mean, the difference is that, you know, my role, I don't feel that way. It comes at differently for me, but very much so. This despair, there's a feeling of this. There's a noticeable conscious despair that's been around for a while, but it's been building, and this is probably what you're coming across, or you're feeling, is that peaking of it, and it's coming up. And for me, I see that despair as a release mechanism. It's almost like a surrender, and they're giving up to the fight. There's no fight. That this is the thing. So what's left? And where's the fight coming from? The fight is coming from a place of anger, fear. Underneath, it's a belly, and this is what's coming up to be felt, and to be felt in a lot of people. And this is going to be surrendered to. This is going to be left. So this is the way I perspect this, and this is why today, and again, we spoke about this prior, this sort of warrior mode, or whatever you wish to call it, the way of just speaking through all of that and talking to a solution, talking to the purity, talking to the release, talking to what will be and not what was, talking past that despair, not trying to deal with it, not trying to break it down necessarily as we do. We just go through that distortion and talk to the higher. But that is the feeling today, brother. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, and putting the raw truth out there, you know, and this is one of the things I love about you, Lee. You always put that, what I call the highest absolute raw truth out there, and you do that bluntly. Yeah, so with Lee, right? Yeah. But I love that, you know, because there are times that we need to do that, you know. And we are, with our gifts, you and I, we are slightly different, but we're working all together and combining everything as a team, as all of the divine ones upon the planet. And, you know, and there's various ways that we do this. And I love your straightforward approach. And, you know, with I kind of at times be gentle, be compassionate, and try to nurture. But, you know, there are times, even more so lately again, I have to do what Lee does and no, cut right through it and get right to the point. And when we look at this, you know, this is what we must do divinely. We are to be, it's not to put ourselves above anyone else, but it's that recognition that we are, let's say, peers, examples, and teachers here. And we need to deliver this higher component of truth. If we don't do that, there is stagnancy. There is no evolvement in the consciousness. If there was no higher consciousness, if you will, to be a peer to advance humanity forward organically and automatically, I don't feel it would work. They just keep looping and running in circles.
One of the divine mechanisms, though, isn't it, brother, is to be able to share with, you know, all the fear. There is no fear there. There's no fear of judgment or all of these fingers pointing back. It's to share what you feel and share what you know with, and without. It's not. I always looked at it as not my words. It's not my truth. It's everybody's truth. So why not give it the way I wish to receive it? And I don't want to wish. Now, from my aspect and from my experience, I'd rather have the truth than worry around, moving around. So that's what I deliver. But, you know, experientially, I had Brother Dean talking to me a bit earlier about being careful with what I say to a few, and because it can cause them to relapse into their own shame or fear of what they have been complicit to. And I said to Dean, we've all been complicit to it. There is no point, from my experience, you know, everybody's got their own way of doing this and the way of going through this and their own experiences. But from my experience, nobody remembers, or lots of people can ignore the quiet way, the soft way, the come on, and the moving of this. But what they do remember is the impact of the heavy hitting. So we can spend a lot of time, this is what I've worked at, you know, everybody can do what they wish, but we can spend an awful lot of time pandering to another's feelings and trying to mollycoddle them through this. And that's great, you know, and that's full of compassion. Yet, actually, I spent a lot of time doing that and found it didn't get anywhere. But what did was that purity, that bluntness, because it caused an effect. And that effect was a realization. Now, they can look at me and point fingers and say, we don't like the way you delivered that, but the truth is still the truth. And this is my message. The delivery of said truth, it doesn't matter. That's just a semantic in the moment where one gets impacted upon it. And one of the duties, and this is what everybody will realize, one of the moral obligations or sole responsibilities each has is to not control, but understand their own emotional state. And if that needs to be let out, so be it, then it can be seen. I'm not in fear of that. But if it does get let out, then what it is you're going to do with it. So again, I don't want to ramble too much.
No, it's great. In this great time of transparency, it's what it's needed. Go ahead, brother, please.
Well, this is that point. So if somebody, you know, many I've spoken to have had an impact upon their consciousness, which has caused an emotional upburst. And of course, this brings in all sorts of different stories in your mind. By the way, all of those are fiction. Actually, look, when you look at what's going on, lots of things have changed, perspective changed, and opinions change, and these stories are fiction. When you see that, you can release them, but until you see that, you can't. And of course, blunt truth can cause that if that's still there within you. Blunt truth. People can call it blunt. I just call it pure. Of course, it's down to, again, how you perceive these things. So these things need to be said, I feel, and if that, you know, divinely so, and that's what they will be done. And we're in this glorious time and in this great time now where despair is coming to the surface, and that is beautiful for me, because then that can be released and realized and seen, and this fictional stories that the head keeps telling everybody can be released as well. And we can start to listen earnestly to what it is that our own hearts are saying. And if that has to come through a little bit of an impact, so be it. I would prefer it not to. I would prefer it to be easier, but yeah, it is where we are.
Yeah. So, you know, you're a teacher as well. That's what I consider you, and you as well. Over the course, let's say, of your purveyance to others and assisting and teaching, you're blunt in the moment. So you give that to them. Now, afterwards, let's say a few days into the future or afterwards, you know, at first they reject perhaps what you say and they go away. But do they come back, and what is their expression then, if you will?
It depends on the level of consciousness and the role each one is playing. Many have run away. Many will keep their head, or have, not will, have kept their head in the sands in the past. And of course, this was my divine training, if you will, feeling that I couldn't get my message across or the message across when it wasn't ready to be received. Again, it's all release of these ideas. But realistically, once you have the courage to accept that maybe there is something going on outside of what you believe to be the truth, that causes a huge change. And they may not come back to me, and this is the beauty of it. They may go to somebody else. They may find another truth somewhere else, and that's delivered in a way that they can more happily accept. But that's been opened up. And possibly they wouldn't have been able to see that truth prior. So all of this has a great effect. Many come back, many will speak, and we can go on to further and further and further. Should they so wish? Oh, no.
Yeah, you're still there, brother. Yeah, so with this, you know, let's say with this is the analogy many uses, that we're planting seeds, you know, if you will. I could hear you, Lee, but let's just hold on. We're working with a new, this is new what we're doing, and we're attempting also, I will in the future, to get the GPMS logo in the streaming. So these are technical things that we're working out. So Lee will be back on shortly with this. And you know, we're going to get into fear. I wish to get into fear with Lee, to speak about that and doing the inner work. And you know, the intents and purposes of this actual discussion is for Lee and I to discuss, but discuss it openly as we're doing, and to share for the benefits that it may have for all. So we're, you know, this is one of the reasons why we are doing this, and especially today. And so we're getting it all out. Let me check. Okay. Yeah. We'll re-add Lee back in here. We'll just give that a moment again. There you go, brother. You're playing Merlin on us today.
Hopefully, brother. There's a few expletives slipped out inside there, so maybe they come through, maybe they didn't.
No, we were on the last part, what I said before you dropped out. You know, this is the seed planting. that we have to plant these seeds and let them, if they lay dormant for a while, but eventually they do germinate. And this is what, you know, with this analogy, this is when ones come back, when they're ready for more. And again, it's not to demean anyone at all, but you know, if teachers were not required upon the planet, we would not even be going through this type of a reality and a scenario, if you will. Everyone would know it, have it ingrained in the heart and in the consciousness. But this is the new world we are creating now, and it's so prevalently apparent, you know, that all don't have that with their actions and reactions and their behavior. But we are creating this. So everything that we do, it plants the seeds.
Yeah, and you know, again, it depends on levels of consciousness. Again, I don't like to look at levels because everything is equal. There is an ongoing game in my perspective here where there seems to be this levels, but it's not. But there are gaps as per the soul's choices, the soul's journeys, each one having to embody certain sections to fill those gaps in, and that's, you know, that's just experiential. But as you get through the gaps of deceit that have been impacted upon you, then you get into the higher meaning of what it is that you actually are. And this is where it starts to get really interesting when trying to speak to others who have spiritual ideas and all of these concepts, but yet have to date maybe not spent so much time on the embodiment of said ideas and more time gathering information. And it's when we speak to embodiment and integration and reconciliation, when we speak to meticulousness of thought, and it therefore in what comes out of the mouth, when we speak to what is being spoken, or some do it through energy, when we try to refine and show maybe some other gaps at this point, so we can encounter these stages, and this is why it's beautiful that so many divine brothers and sisters are out there filling in these gaps, helping people to see at all sorts of different levels. It's not just us. There's so many out there doing it. It's just we're talking about this here. So I have so much love for everybody that's doing everything. I mean, and all those that are having their gaps filled in and are going through those journeys and swiveling around the place. It's all good, because once you release the sense of control, once you realize what the soul is and who the souls are that are around you, then there is no wrong.
Exactly.
This is another reason. Sorry, brother. This is another reason why the pure, I call pure truth, can come out from a level above compassion and empathy, which is unconditional love. I don't speak to. I just speak to love. But what is really love? It's not pure. So pure truth, and that's what I speak to with these. I found before that it could be ignored, but that can't. That has an impact upon the field of whom you're speaking with, and albeit that may take a while to integrate or to go in, it nevertheless does.
Yeah, well, you know, everything is energy, and we know that, and a large part of the metaphysical community knows that everything is energy. But having said this, I wish to say that's why it's so important for one to have the virtues, the mannerism, the good qualities embodied, you know, and this touches on what you're saying, and what I also see. You see ones with the superficial component, they know it all or know most of it, yet it's not embodied, and they are not acting it out. And this is where it becomes important at having it embodied, walking the walk, talking the talk, if you will, because this is the knowing. When it's only up in the consciousness, they think they know, but they're not until it's down in here and they are acting it out. That is the knowing. What do you have to say about that, if you will?
I see, this is very important. I see, I mean, generally, you know, you can lose import when you get to a higher, but it really, a certain level of importance is virtue. Importance is integrity. So embodiment of these things is important, yet having a knowledge or having the intellect to carry some of this knowledge is certainly not embodiment. And what I talk to with embodiment is there can be no other way. So it's not like it's a thinking, it's an absolute knowing. And therefore it could never be, you could never allow yourself to lower that or to be lesser than that. It goes against the embodiment. And this is where poise have just seen in the chat, and all sorts of other grace, acceptance, release, surrender, purity, all of these beautiful things come in, because you can't not be that once it's embodied. And this is how we can, or certainly I can, not gauge, observe in others, in what fears or what gaps are still there is the way that they speak and the power to which they speak, and how they speak about these things, and the way they carry themselves, their commitment to integrity. Integrity just meaning whole. What would you be if you're not whole? Is whole bitty, parts coming out, and therefore light flying everywhere. If it's here, it's focused. And of course, this is that embodiment you speak to, brother. Or we speak to.
Yeah, indeed. With that, I was just thinking, Lee, the way I like to say it, in the higher realms, there is no right or wrong. Everything just is, as you're saying. However, it becomes very blatant that there is a right and a wrong in this reality. There is the moral obligation of which both you and I have been speaking about the last several days, the virtuous intent. And again, I need to go with that, because intent and the way one acts outwards actually creates the energy. And there is a scale, for I at least, there is a polarity of what is a negative emotion, expression, and what is a positive. So having said this, we also can assign the right and the wrong way. But having said this, what we're here to do, us and so many other teachers, is to assist ones in knowing the right way, the virtuous way, the purity, which involves all of the good qualities. What do you say to that?
Absolutely, brother. And this is what can cause, again, some internal angst in others when that's being pointed out. So be it. There's a certain point in time. This is what, again, we can talk to different levels, and we shall. But there is a point in time where acceptance and tolerance of that which is not harmonic becomes pointless. It's not saying it's wrong. It's just saying it's no longer acceptable. This is the difference. And there's no judgment with this. There's purely fact. There you go. It's an observation. Neutrally. It's a neutral.
There are times we cannot walk away from it, that we have to stand our ground and confront it. For if we walk away from it and allow it just to be, it always is there. So in these times, we have to confront something that is not acceptable. What would you say?
There's a nice, easy way of looking at this. We talk to unconditional love, but when we get to a certain level, then if you look into yourself, into your own heart, there's a certain amount of things that you would never accept yourself doing. You would never tolerate yourself doing it, because it's not of virtue. Yet we're taught to accept it externally as if it's okay. Now, is it? Or is it our manifestation? We know they're all souls, but we're coming to harmony now. There's been a disharmonic that's been ongoing. There's been a distortion. If we don't point this out, purify it, say to it what it is, who will? This is a time for non-condonance of that which is disharmonic. It's not a time of judgment. But if you haven't embodied the purity and the virtue, then you tend to have an emotional input to that. Speaking to something that is disharmonic, you tend to be emotionally invested in it, attached to it, and then that is not the same. There is a lot of subtlety in what we're speaking to, and there's a lot of difference between judging and observing neutrally and stating neutrally that's not acceptable, in whichever way you wish to develop that conversation. But it should be had, I feel. And like you just said, brother, there's times when you just can't not. You can't walk away. You have to say something. And that's divinely so.
So, Lee, if we look at the direct impact of virtue upon the reality, and let's say everyone acting virtuous, when we look at how that changes reality, but let's also look at the non-virtuous acts and what kind of a reality does that create? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we've just many have experienced. I've got the phone. Many have experienced what that feels like. How you can't trust anybody, how people don't keep their word, how everybody's in fear, everybody's intimidated, everybody's out to survive. You know, there's no blame with this. It's simply what was. And the reality that creates, or we created for others, is witnessable. We can see what that is. And I think most would suggest, or most would agree, it hasn't been particularly funky. It's been a little bit hard. And there's no end. Yeah, there was no end in sight. Now, imagine, if you will, that everybody can be trusted because they carry honor above everything else. They carry integrity above everybody else. And so anything anybody would say to you, you wouldn't have to consider is, are they going to do it? You wouldn't even have to question it. You would just know, because otherwise they would lower it. And they would never do that, because that is not where this collective experience is going. It's going to a higher frequency. Of course, this all starts with the individuals, and the individuals recognizing that they are not individual. They are all brothers and sisters and coming together in a unity at whatever level of consciousness they wish to, well, they are at this point. But once this starts, and that level of trust, not only in the other, but of course, when the trust in the other comes, the trust is obviously an externalization of your internal process. You're trusting yourself. You're trusting yourself, and therefore you can trust others, and others can trust you. And the whole thing changes, because the elements of deceit and deception and manipulation and malevolence are no longer there anymore, because you can see through them. So we point this out. Yes, we may point it out vehemently, and I might point it out relentlessly to some, as I've been told. But why not? What's wrong with that?
And this is why the transparency is such an important part of integrity and of virtue as well. So it clears the distorted field, if you will, where nothing is concealed that festers. When everything is in the open, it is a harmonious flow with, let's say, problems are no longer there. It's all the solutions as well. So the effects, if you will, of the purification of the individual is emanated outward into reality and creates that reality. So the importance of the purity is there, the purity and the choice of, you know, the most honorable, admirable, compassionate, love, actions and reactions and consideration and respect, you know, all of these good things for all. But again, you know, this is the reason why all of us are here, and most of you, if not all of you watching this, is to change the reality. But again, you know, I love the analogy where it begins with one, because it truly does, you know, but then more and more, all speaking and doing that same thing is what creates the entire reality to be that. But it is that important. So the transparency is very important.
Yeah, but that, again, what the transparency comes from the inside. What are you trying to hide? Now,
why do you
are you still there?
try to hide things? Yeah. Why does one try to hide things. It's because of fear again.
But that's been taught through the experience. Where I've just written a post, brother, and you've chuckled at it and all the rest. I'm not going to repeat too much of it here, but in a hellscape environment, you have to hide. You have to hide your intention. You know, all of this, otherwise you don't get on. You can't survive. So humanity and the human experience have gone through that, and imagine being able to release all of that, having to hide stuff, and being able to do it in a way because nobody's judging you, and you actually benefit from it. You're not pilloried for it like it used to be. So the whole thing was the whole inverted experience that's been undertaken has so strengthened everybody. They are so ready to release all of that fear, yet they're in fear of doing it. And again, this is it's duplicity. It's a paradox, but that's what we can experientially speak to. Fear. Well, you offer a solution as fear.
Indeed, Lee. So, you know, one thing I teach and I always say, and we know it's prevalent in the metaphysical, esoteric communities, if you will, that fear blinds. That old adage is absolutely true, that it blinds, it blocks one from that higher consciousness. But having said this, then I am asked the question, okay, how do we do the inner work? How do we get rid of the fear? One thing that I say is, you know, begin to practice the positive things. Get the consciousness in a positive mindset, but begin to practice from the heart. And to speak your truth is such an important part of that process. To be, again, the transparency has to come. What are you feeling? You have to give that outward. But to begin, you know, their inner work process at the fear, these are some of the things that I suggest, and then you begin to practice all of the good qualities. Look up what virtuous means, you know, all of the virtues, and begin to practice them. Is there anything you would add or that you wish to say on that, brother?
I love you, brother, for doing that. I love you for doing that. I do it slightly differently because I look at the consciousness. I look at impacting the mind and the thought processes. So I talk to what is it that you're thinking? Why would you say that? Where did that come from? So I look at the thought and impacting the programming, and enable the mind to see, or try to enable, you know, I did it in the past. No, I will say enable the mind to see things more consciously, to realize, rather than listening to the stories, to see through them, to actually question. I question people so vehemently on what it is they believe, that at the end of it, they show it's like rabbit in the headlights. Yes, because it needs to be impacted, because you don't overwrite subconscious programming quietly, in my opinion, you know. But this is the beauty of different types and methods of all of this. And there's a few that's been around me that would have experienced that, and you know, there's some who still are running away, but many haven't, because they've released, and what they've realized is he was telling us the truth. It may have taken a while, but they've recognized it. They've recognized. They changed the mechanism in their own thinking to release those silly thoughts, those silly conspiratorial thoughts that are telling you everything's out to get you. And these ideas. So we do it in different ways, brother, you know, and you speak to the heart, and so do I, but in a different kind of correlation, in a different kind of way. And that's so beautiful.
With the questioning, so, you know, it is pertinent and invaluable for ones to begin to question everything. That's what occurs, you know, when they're awakened. However, you know, as they begin questioning, then there comes a medium, what I wish to say, you know, that shall they go past that medium and continue to question everything, they go beyond the point, then they begin questioning the truth. then they lose their stability. They have no guidance with that if they began to question everything instead of feeling and knowing in the moment and at least trusting enough to go forward. What would you say with that?
I experience this differently. You see, I keep questioning. I question every truth, you know, because it's not a truth until it's known, right? And there's very few things that are known once you start to get a little bit further into this. Is that you don't need to know too much. You know it in the moment because you release all thoughts about it. But in the interim, there's this fear. There's this fear, you see, because when you experientially, everybody would go through using their experiences, previous experiences, to gauge what to do next and to make decisions. So the way I speak to a lot of this is the first day on a new job. You're going to walk in and it's full of trepidation. You're probably full of trepidation. Many people would have recognized this. First day at school, first day of whatever. It's something new. You're out of your comfort zone. And it may take a wee while before you get comfortable. Now, all the fears and the anxiety that you first faced when you walked into that first day, after a while, they're gone. Where did they go? Did anything go wrong? Did all those fears manifest? No, but they were in the mind. They were all these concerns because what they were was questions that you didn't have answers to. What's it going to be? Who's going to be that? Well, all of these things that the mind wants to percolate to keep control of what's going to happen. Now, at a certain stage, you are not going to get the answers. They are not available. Nobody can give you those answers. It's your choice then to remain in fear or to trust exactly what you're patterning, everything that you've been through prior, all of those anxieties and fears that you had prior to being comfortable in the situation. They all come back up again, but you're not going to get the answer. Now what you're going to do? You're going to remain in fear? You're going to remove yourself from the situation and not go past that stage, or you're going to allow yourself to trust and surrender like you did before and see that there was nothing to fear in the first place. And if you do that, the answers come, but you're not going to find them before you do that. Recognize that in your own journeys, guys. Recognize that you've all experienced this. Recognize that previously. You get the confirmation after you've the courage to go through that questioning and release the need to control it all. Just allow it to be, and all of a sudden, there's no fear. This is, you know, again, we speak to it, brother, it's the same mechanism we speak to, but we speak from different ways and perspectives of aiding and assisting others.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Excellent. And also, you know, this brings up another important point. You know, one's also, you've got to muster up that courage, enough courage to take the steps, as Lee is saying, to trust the experience, to go into the experience. Because like Lee is saying, you're questioning everything, but without getting into the experience and having the experience that answers your questions, without taking that step and mustering the courage to go into the experiences, you never have the answers to your question. But now let's say you're entering a level of truth by asking the questions. What is also important to know is that there are many levels to truth, and that truth also is not constant as you advance the levels in consciousness and reality. And one great example I've always used of this is when you awakened and you discovered everything was a lie, what you were told here, you know, but prior to that, you believed it for the most part as a truth. You accepted it, but then you awaken and it comes that point where no longer it's acceptable and that you realize there is another higher truth. However, what I wish to say is truth is not constant as we go up as well, because in these upper layers of truth is more knowledge, is more gnosis to explain things to you that have never been explained before. We are in unprecedented times of truth evolving upward higher to allow for higher knowledge to come in, because humanity is in what you could call at least a super consciousness evolution.
Love it, brother. What? Excuse me. One of the see, I like to simplify, as I know we
I
both
love
do,
it.
but I like to simplify. So there's a level of there's a level of concept. Let's call it concept for now, because as people are going through the embodiment process, it's still a concept of what a soul is, or what you are as an individual. Now, there's a lot of questions surrounding this, and many sites will tell you all sorts of things. But again, you're in the same position. You're not going to get an answer from another with all of this stuff where it's actually about embodiment. You have to receive it yourself, or come to a realization, whichever one comes first. And this generally comes with the release of looking for answers and having to sit back and make a jump. Take a leap of faith in yourself, or trust. Now, this may come with a little tiny step, test the water until you get your confidence. Either way, it doesn't matter. This isn't right or wrong. But what I say to people is, or what I've tried to simplify it is this: if you consider the mind to be a processing unit, and it works on gates, where binary gates, I like binary, yes, no. If you look at gates, and each gate starts a new set of choices. So, no, does it work? Yes, no. Is it this? Yes, no. And that takes away gray areas and allows for a simpler path. I find, again, others do differently. But the major one, the base gate that I speak to people about, the base gate is, am I or am I not? Now, you might not know what you are, but are you it or are you not? What does that mean to you? Are you divine? Are you eternal? Are you infinite? Are you a soul? Or are you a fluke of nature that lives here and that's it? Which one do you think? And which one would you like? Which one do you want to act like? What does a divine eternal being act like? These sort of concepts allow for one to just sit there in a nice, simple way, and then you can reflect on each action during the day. None of them were wrong. We can only see mistakes in hindsight, and of course that's regret, as if you'd made a wrong decision, which you can't do. They only lead to the next decision. That's all that happens, and there's an experience involved. Of course there's cause and effect, and that helps us see and to refine. But then you can reflect back on the day. Even if in the moment you made decisions that you were unaware of, you can think back to them and say, which gate did I use? I am or I am not. I'm the light, I'm full of love, I am all powerful. I can make mistakes, I'm fallible. Which one? And again, for me, it allows to simplify this process for one so they can see it simply that way. And of course, for me, I find that overriding in the mind allows for the embodiment and allows for the heart to open. But I know Brother Rick sees it a different way. And both of them are perfect, because all we're doing is impacting the consciousness.
That way as well, brother. You brought up a great thing, about the binary, keeping it simple and not over questioning everything. Because when you begin to over question, you create the complexity that takes you away from the simple. And this makes it, when you create more complexity by sitting, questioning everything, it becomes more harder to navigate and operate in the reality, but also because of the complexity you have created from the logical thought process, then you don't advance forward as well. There is this, as Lee is saying, there is this higher level of consciousness once you surrender again that you begin to enter, and your perspectives change, because that is where the truth is. So your perspective in your consciousness, if you will, raises into the layers where you are given the truth, as long as you don't overcomplicate the things and create that complexity. So it's important to be meticulous. How much are you questioning? I love what Lee says, to keep it simple. Yes or no? Do I do this or not? Don't overthink it. Just trust yourself and, oh, it feels right, I'll do it. And go into it without any expectation, because you have to see what is there. But again, with expectation, you don't want to create complexity and chaos in there. you have to keep it open to see what is there, and that is when the answers come. Because you don't have the answers within you, you're going here to get the answers. So this is why the more open and the full surrender you have, when you go into that without any logical expectations, then the answers come so much easier with that.
We can talk to anxiety, brother. I mean, for me, anxiety is the questions not being answered, and therefore the fear coming in of the loss of control of what will happen. Of course, this is all bred into the collective through the experience that has just ended or is ending. But this anxiety is thinking whether you haven't got the answers, but there's a load of fear about what may happen. Of course, if you're working on that gate thing, again, it's nice and simple. If you are, then there is no fear. But if you're not, then there is. And if there's fear, then you can simply come back and say, well, what caused that? What is there still in me that allowed me to think something could go wrong? And again, you know, as you extrapolate down this route, you'll see for me anyway, it's relatively easy. Go, brother.
I wish to ask you this question. When one attacks another, would you say that they are attacking because they're coming from a place of ignorance? Lack of gnosis?
Lack of gnosis, most certainly. And that's, what's it called? Epistemological, I can't remember the word, it's unusual. But yes, a lack of gnosis, because gnosis is internal knowing. Gnosis is wisdom. This is, you know, we can use lots and lots of different words. It's certainly not intellect. They can have all the intellect in the world, but they're certainly they are not internally wise. And wise means that you're trusting yourself, right? Wise means that there is no reason to attack. What would you attack? You know, because you haven't got emotional instability. You haven't got fear. You haven't got anger and blame that you need to point at somebody else because you've already dealt with it. So we can say it's ignorance. We can say it's all sorts of different things. For me, I see it as a release of that anger, and it's something that can be shown. But many people attack others, and the others personalize it, take it, you know, and this creates this real bad, not bad, that's putting a judgment on it, real disharmonic when the other is taking it personally and they go into self-doubt. And of course, this brings two down to one, and misery enjoys company and all of these things. Yeah, it spirals downwards. But of course, if you have gnosis, if you have internal wisdom, if you have embodied at least the basis that you are omnipotent and infinite, then another attacking you it doesn't even impact you. It's just there to be seen.
Yeah.
This allows it to be free.
Yeah. But when you look at it also, you know, let's say if you have one that is attacking one that does not attack, what you are seeing, that there is that degree of ignorance that is still there because it does not serve the purpose. Yes, it reveals through their explicit behavior what they need to heal, but it also creates a gap, a separation, for when they reach out to attack one, they are repelled, which causes the separation. So with any, again, this is why it's so important when you're in your states of fear to create the unity which creates harmony, that you must do this inner work. You must not be controlled by it. And also, if you're being attacked, don't lower yourself to that, because the moment you do that, as Lee says, then both of you spiral down into it. And there is, per se, there is no upliftment. It's a downward thing. So it's important for anyone that's being attacked, remain adamant, be persistent in your higher gnosis that you have. And I need to say, yes, it's higher, because it is. With one that does not attack compared to one that attacks, when they attack, it comes from lower density, it comes from fear, it comes from this hell paradigm, if you will. And we are going to a heaven on earth scenario.
One thing I'm reminded of and witnessed many times is in that, this is something I was gifted by a while back about a mechanism, and I spent a lot of time questioning it. I still do. I kind of enjoy it, but I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. Is that in the emotional state, in an emotional fear state, where the subconscious is now kicking in and the egoic defense mechanisms of the weak masculine mind, the bitter controller of reality, kicks in. Realistically, this actually describes in the moment what age you were when this wound, and I don't talk to this experience happened, that is still negative in you. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, when you are in that mode, you have the tools of the child in the adult body. And that's the level of consciousness where it's blame and justification, because I'm not getting what I want. That's what this is kicking off. And of course that's ignorant. It's not ignorant, it's innocent, but it's very angry because it hasn't learned anything yet. It's in the adult, and of course the adult thinks it's it, but it's not. This is a level of consciousness which is gapped back because you've dropped due to that emotional instability and the stories that you tell yourself about everything else being a blame, because that weak masculine needs to blame everything else. It certainly hasn't got the strength to stand above it. And this is all because of the drop. So I see things, in this way. It's the child state. It's an angry child in front of you trying to blame you for not giving it its sweets. No, this is unacceptable. This is not your fault. Whoever is attacking is insecure in the moment and a child. Speak to the child. Tell the child it's not acceptable. Do not take blame for that. And this is what we're talking to here, brother. Do not even think it's your fault. There is no thing that can make you angry except you. So you cannot make another angry. You cannot spark another into anger. They can only allow themselves to be angry. Now we're talking about anger that drops you into a child state, an angry blame. We're not talking to a righteous anger, which is much more controlled and not emotionally sparked. But a sparked anger through emotion, yeah, something to look at.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, Lee, like blame, victimhood. This is, again, it's all associated with the fear and the inner work that one needs to do themselves to come through this realization, what they are actually projecting outward towards others and in the overall reality and what they're creating by allowing that again to be there. And we're in the great time of purification, at cleaning those things up, as we said, on a wide scale. And when we look at the fear spectrum, there are just so many attributes of fear. But you made a very great important point. And this is a great practice that I'm seeing out there for getting ones to go back to their inner child, their childhood, and let's say we know that many have had, very bad traumatic experiences, but the only thing that's going to set you free from that past trauma is reconciling it. And, one of the things, I will say it right out here once again, what I say to everyone, you cannot change that past, but you can change it by changing what you're doing now and looking at it as being a valuable experience that you needed to have to know in this now, because you are one to assist in stopping that ever happening to another again. So you needed to be, especially the divine ones, they were targets of the darkness and what have you, but they needed to divinely go into that, have that experience to know that it really exists, to garner all of the knowledge so that they could be here in this most great time to choose the good and to show others how to do it. And this is what we're all doing. And you know, with this, I'll publicly say once again that you know, there is an actual evil upon the planet that cannot ascend where we're going. They have an actual nefarious ill intent, but that doesn't matter to us. What matters to and us, we're taking all of the good human souls forward that can go. With the evil, it's left behind, and it has no power. It's a fourth density quarantine density. I'd like you to speak to density after a minute, Lee, to explain that. But you know, they can. We are multi-dimensional, meaning we can go, you know, to dimensions infinitely. They are not. They are fourth dimensional. They are quarantined to that because of what the reality dictates for them to exist in. A fear, negative, energized polarity, reality is the only place they can exist. This is why, with the ascension, the purification of ones to be positive and virtuous, with the absence of what I would call a death factor in the reality. So, Lee, do you wish to speak a little bit about the density and the definition and your perspective of it?
Well, I've got a different definition. You know this, brother. See, there's many obfuscations of truth that, yeah, let's just call it that. There's many obfuscations of truth, and there's many missed or mislabeled of words. And density, everybody thinks of as dense, is heavy. But if we look to the, I said to somebody the other day about density. You know, density can be explained like this. You could wake up one morning with a feeling of density, and that could make you angry and miserable all day long. And the next day you could feel lighter, and you could be happy and joyful. What changed in you? Quantitatively, nothing. You're the same. But qualitatively, you've changed. So density can be seen as a qualitative issue or qualitative thing, where a negative is heavier. It feels it. We've all felt these things, but we've never been explained this way what the difference is between quality and quantity. And one of the good ways of looking at this is a magnet, a piece of metal or piece of whatever, ceramics, quantitatively doesn't change in the slightest if it has a magnetic attachment to it, or a magnetic, you know, I think you know the word, what I mean. From the time it becomes a magnet to the time it was a metal, nothing quantitatively changed, yet its quality did. So I look at density like this. A dense is very negative, it's very sticky, it's very syrupy, it's awkward to move in, and these sort of ideas. And you all have felt those dense days where everything around you is these sort of things. And then you'd have felt the light days, but nothing really changed, but it did qualitatively. So again, it's just something else for people to think about, is the quality as opposed to what they see. It's the quality of what they see, and why that quality might not be quite what they think it should be or wished it to be. It's got nothing to do with the quantity. It's got to do with what they're seeing in it. And of course, this is all changing. The quality as we rise up. This is where the purity comes in. The density that people hold within themselves is a negativity. It's a negativity that's running around in the field and in the mind. And most people aren't taught to even think about these things. It's just life. Another lie, another fiction that's been taught to everybody. But this quality. So when we can think back, if we're holding negative thoughts, they are only exist in our field. They create a density. Think about that on a quality nature. If you're carrying density, what are you doing? Now, as a I am a soul of eternal light, and whichever way you wish to perceive it, isn't quality important? And hence we're talking about virtue. And all of these things come back. So we can circle around all of these. See, one of the beautiful things, brother, as you well know, is all of these ideas, mechanisms that we speak to, they all have a fundamental core. None of them are abstract. They all come back to purity, to balance, to harmony, to neutrality, to all of these words. Density doesn't really sit in those words, does it? So if you look at its quality as opposed to weight, yeah, it might change your aspect.
Yeah, thank you. You know, and to enhance the quality, it's by the choice of the individual. You know, as you're saying, Lee, you also have that gift and that ability to choose, you know, how you're thinking also. But also, if you wake up in a dense state, you're feeling the weight. And again, I use the word dense because it's a negative polarity and it does have a weight. We feel a weight in our energetic being to it. So you know, I call it dense or negative polarity. But what all of you will find by changing your thought and doing, you know, what some little things to what we call raising your vibration, your frequency, then you see by your choice, by putting your focus onto the positive, by raising your frequency and your vibration and changing the polarity to positive, then you are uplifted. And this is on the micro scale. But overall, this is part of the process, what we're doing on the macro scale to the planet. So once we have each recognizing the energetic ingredients that is allowing for a disharmonic, discordant world, once we recognize those, then you have the choice to choose the higher opposite to uplift all out of that dense, negative fear reality.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can take it, yeah, where creation comes from within. And of course, if you're listening to your internal stories, then yeah, they project outwardly and you see what your stories tell you to see to justify your feeling. Of course, if you change your thoughts, you see things differently. And this is where truth can change very, very quickly, and opinions and perspectives can be easily dismissed because they were a negative overlay that was being cast to justify maybe something that hadn't been seen prior. And of course, if you blame all of that outside from that negative overlay, you're not going to see it. So these things can be, again, described or explained to certain degrees. You know, again, as we keep raising, the explanations change. But we can still describe them and we can make them simple. And that's what we're cutting through here, I believe, brother.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what come up, you know, your demeanor is so important, and the way, what I wish to say with this, you know, one thing in my early days upon the planet being tutored by Father in the angelic realms, one thing to my surprise, Lee, you know, most people say jokes to make people laugh. But what occurred with this, part of my divine lessons was any demeaning jokes you no longer can say, Rick, because it is a demeaning thing. And with this, you know, no longer what they would call the blonde jokes. I could not say any of those because it was demeaning and what it represented. So I had to become very refined and meticulous, you know, in my speaks and also jokes. And what was funny, as a result of you know, still saying some jokes, a lot of times my jokes they would not get, and they would call them dry jokes, but it was a hilarious part of the process. But also getting with that, I'll throw right in as well, you know, with ones with what you would call perhaps white lies, but then there's unknown lies. When you may say something deceptive, and you've got to retract your speech, what you said out there. So, you know, I found the importance of this as well, but also know it. And the point what I wish to make is your spoken word is an energy. It has a vibration. It has a frequency. So each one needs to know that where whatever you speak and where that's coming from, that you should be at least conscientious as well of what you are speaking into reality.
Perfect, brother. And this is where honor comes in. And this is where one holds themselves with honor. But what does that mean? What is honorable? Well, if you say something that you intentionally, honestly meant, but you can't carry it out, well, then you make amends. You simply state you can't do it. You be honorable about it. If that means it costs you a little bit or you've got to do something else, it doesn't matter. Your honor is worth more to you and more important than that contract you just made with yourself that you are no longer honoring. See, we think we can let other people, we can just say these things to others and it doesn't matter. But when you actually clock that that's an energetic contract you've made, not with the other, although you may have set an expectation with them, but with yourself, and then you fail to honor it, well, consider it from your own point of view. You just made your own contract and you couldn't honor it. That's okay. Simply then you have to put that contract at rest by making amends for the contract you made. And this makes it so much more prudent then not to throw willy-nilly contracts out there, not to throw willy-nilly words out there, to be more meticulous when you consider the energetic impact it has upon yourself. Not the rest. It can't be thrown away when you realize what it is. It's energy, and you are energy, and this is integrity. And we've just spoke to this, where it's the wholeness. And of course, if you're not integral, you're not carrying honor with everything. Again, meticulous. I speak to a principle that whatever it may be seen as this, but it's nevertheless the truth. How much of it you embody, how much of it you take on day by day by day, of course it's the soul's choice, but it's still the truth.
Absolutely, and it ripples outward, and the analogy comes to mind, the butterfly effect, if you will, and how that ripples outward. And with this, we use this in our expression because it does ripple out through all of reality around the planet. What would you say to that, Lee? How much does it affect the overall planet?
Well, I couldn't speak to it, Gareth, definitively, brother, apart from hugely. The higher, there's the way of looking at it, and it's about, I look at it in different aspects to try to make it simple to explain. Even though I'm not 100% on all of these, you still got to cut through what you can and not be afeared of being slightly mistaken or slightly off, because you can always change, because you spoke your highest truth in the moment. Your truth can change, and that's okay. That was yesterday, and this is today, and my truth has changed today. Great. You're allowing yourself to do all this with no remorse, because you didn't do anything. All of this can be made amends. But the impact of raising your vibration, or to go through distortion without fear, is to leave a vacuum behind you in the energetics almost. It cuts through distortion. And as you cut through that distortion, all those lies and deceits and distorted narratives, you open a gap in here for others to follow and to lift up. This is the difference. People do not realize that. They've never been taught, and I get this, the energetic impact of all of these things. It's cutting through all of this layers of syrup, because you know what you are, because you've embodied the fact that you are. And where would you rather be? Somewhere down here holding yourself back because you're full of fear, or cutting through all of that and allowing others to rise with you. This is the vanguard that Rick speaks to, and these ideas. It's cutting through that distortion and speaking your truth regardless, and that allows for others to, unbeknownst to you, because it has that bigger an impact upon the field. Somewhere close to talking to it, brother. I'm talking to it rather than explaining it.
That's beautiful. What I'm thinking about now, Lee, is I use the analogy. I actually have it written, because I'll be doing a post or speaking more about it. But what I do is I take a circle, and this circle is the existing societal systems upon the planet today. This is the circle, and everything is all inside. I like to call this all hell, if you will, right now. And what we are doing is outside of that circle, we are creating the heaven on earth scenario. Now, what keeps the circle together inside, I like to say, is all of the fear spectrum as well, with separation, ego, and all of the bad qualities. And I say bad because then I say the virtuous is the good. But having said that, you know, it's a conglomeration of energy, and I, being a strong empath as well, I gauge and I feel what is being created in hell at any given time, because we're standing just up here on the outside of it, you know, and as we do, I wish to say more of there's lots of us that's on the outside of this, and we keep hauling our divine comrades up out of it as they do their inner work and as they're ready, which is, so we're in a very beautiful, glorious time. And having said this, us that are up on top of it, which is all of you that done your inner work and you know what's actually happening, we cannot leave until we get the rest of our comrades here out of hell, if you will. So, having said that, Lee, is there in hell, you know, what are the main separation things? We know it's all the fear spectrum, but what is a generic, prevalent thing within today's society that is causing the great separation? What was causing ones from raising enough into consciousness to know and, well, let's say, to stop accepting this old world and everything that it was generating? What are some of the, yeah, go ahead.
For me, again, we've spoken to this before, brother, and there's so many. See, fear covers such a great spectrum of lower density energetics, way below love. Fear is just an absence of love, right? Fear is nothing more than that. For me, fear is the opposite of love, i.e. an absence of, and I'm not talking love external, I'm talking for yourself, a light. Fear is dense because it's heavy, because it's dark, and there's darkness. And we talk to shadows and all of these things. And okay, we can talk to many different spiritual practices, but fear. So where does fear come from? It's ignorance. But realistically, in the masses, it's a lack of value. There is no value in the individuals. That they are worthless, and they've been taught to be, in society and culturally, they've been taught to be. They've been whipped and beaten down, and you know, all of these things have been ongoing and still are in the minds of many. And this is because they believe now that that's all they're worth. You know, this is belief. Belief creates reality. So in the minds of the masses, you've got the belief that they're worthless. And of course, then when you offer a solution, they do not feel worthy of it. And those fears come in as to say, what? And this is all in distrust then. They've got to mistrust everything. I can't believe that. I can't believe that. No, we need this. And of course, that's the fiction. So people are believing the fiction. It's been pumped into them, and that creates distrust everywhere else. And they do not see the virtue. They do not want the virtue because that doesn't get them anywhere in the fiction. So, sorry, brother.
Thank you. No, great. So they were tricked. So I know you agree with this, but I wish for you to expand upon it. From the health society, if you will, they were tricked, unbeknownst to them, out of their intrinsic value and their intrinsic worth. So really, it was stolen and tricked from them. What else would you add to that analogy or statement?
See, I have to agree. It was tricked. This is malevolent. This is deception, of course. In a place where creators, well, where there is no, in a place of deviance, which is where we have been, or where it has been. It's deviance. It's savage. It's barbaric. It's inhumane. It's uncivilized. All of these things. That's all because of trickery. So all of these things, all of the worth and the value and the virtue and the honor have been tricked out of people, but it hasn't gone anywhere. This is the difference. It's only your belief that you don't have it.
Well,
If you believe
yeah,
you do,
exactly. At this point, Lee, I'd love to ask now, let's say with ones with the birth bonds and what have you, and that was great timing that you got your cup down before I said that, or you would have spit it all out. But but let's look at the birth bonds and ones attempting, let's say, to get their money back from in here, thinking they're owed this money. Will you please elaborate upon that concept and to raise ones out of that limited ideology as well? Thank you.
Well, let's take it straight away to the debt that people feel is owed to them. When the debt is external, right? The debt, I want my debt, they owe me. No, they don't. You owe yourself. This is the difference. Everything's externalized when we're coming at it from this belief system that we're worth it. You need to give me back because everything's finite. No, it's not. All of these are belief systems. Everything is infinite. There is no debt. See what you've been taught, and we're all subject, or we were all subject to this, is that debt is real. There is no such thing. That's a fiction, but it's believed. Money creation is created. Money is created. Who from? You. Your wealth is being stolen and siphoned off of you and given back to you as debt. How do they do that? They couldn't possibly. Yes, they do. And that's exactly how this money system has been created. From your own value. When you are born abundant. You are beneficiaries to everything you will ever need. You weren't taught that. Nobody was taught that. No, what we were taught was we had a surname that was all capitals. And that made us a corporate identity. And again, I'm not going to go too deep into the debt fictions and the straw man fictions and the corporate structure and corporatism. But have a look into it. Have a look at private platform trading. Have a look at off-ledger accounting above the banking system. Have a look at pure money creation, MT103s, money transfers. Have a look at what they do and how they create money on the back of your credit. Because that's what they do. And where is the debt? Well, they've taken your money, which means they owe you. They don't tell you that. You owe it them. They've inverted that too. So there's a little bit where they actually profit at your death because they no longer owe your debt, but you carried it all your life. And they can wipe the slate now. All of this is inverted. All of this is satanic and demonic. And it's going to stop. But whilst people still believe that system, whilst people still believe they need that system, whilst people still believe they have to work for a living and there's a cost to live on this plane, that's the belief that props up hell. And we are poking holes in it. Lights coming everywhere. Divine brothers and sisters are coming out. But many are still in their own version of it. A little bit, brother. I'm sorry for being a little bit dramatic, but it is what it is.
Thank you. I love it. No, it's great. So what I wish to say, again, I'll use this. This is hell again. This is where the evil's monetary system is at, that they stole all of your intrinsic value and they subjugated you to their money. They created this money because you exist, but it becomes frivolous and a total waste of time for any of you to try to get money back from in the system, because the actuality is that money is not yours within the system. They created it because you exist and it's theirs. So it becomes a moot point to even try to do that. What is the most absolute, simple, and logical, sensible thing to do is to collect the majority worldwide that has been subjugated to the system and brought into misery, which is about 90%, to get them, bring them up out here, create the new system for everyone, the unlimited new system. See, inside here, they created money. They can create money indefinitely and infinity. And as Leah's saying, there is no debt. I love the thing when they say, you know, with the worldwide debt. Who does the world owe it to? It's absolute nonsense. So having said this, you know, it's all part of the illusion, but I'm going to take it a little bit deeper. It never was about the money. It was about the control of money to create and inflict misery and hardship upon humanity, and to rob them of their absolute power, to keep alive hell, if you will. So having said this, it was never about the money, but what we are doing is we are going to create good money for all to lift everyone out of hell. And this is what we're doing with GPMS.world, and it is the divine instrument. So
one of the beauties, brother, and I've always said this, sorry to jump in, I know that there's a little bit of lag. One of the beauties of this is, Rick, I know what Rick is referring to. He's not, when he uses the word, we are creating this, and we are holding it. The actual people will choose it. Humanity will choose this and this is it's not being done for humanity. There's no, you know, we can talk to lots of different things, but what will happen is humanity will rise themselves, and they will choose this freedom once they realize what it is, and the truths come in. And this is all being set up, and this is why it's ready for humanity to choose. So when that's my aspect of this, is that there's no savior complex. This is not a looping mechanism where people have got savior complexes and these ideas. It's not that. This is an enabling process, and this is an empowering process. And this is the point. It's not a disempowering. It empowers. It gives everybody their freedom, but they choose it, and they will do it, and they'll work through any perceived problems. There are no problems. Everybody's got solutions. That's all they've got once they start to move forward and release those fears. So this is an enabler, and this is why it's so divine.
Thank you so much for that, brother. Yeah, so, you know, it's one of the reasons why, you know, we're so happy and others with us, because you're not doomed in this world, if you will. And every day ones are making the choice, so that once we have the big world created all together, this little one no longer exists. And this little one is hell in your present society today. And again, it never was about the money, and I need to say that. It was about all of the energetics that it caused. It inflicted hardship, misery, even death, suppression, oppression, control, as everyone knows. But what we need to say is there is no solution within hell, within the old system. It is frivolous and pointless to try to create parallel systems while still inside of the system. You know, it is instrumental for perhaps breaches to break through, but what you find without taking the entire perimeter of the old system down, none of your work will go anywhere, because the system is still intact, that is keeping everyone within it. This is why you must exit. It's part of that exit process. However, also, having said this again, you know, there are tools that you can use, but, you know, the quickest and most surest method is just leaving all of this behind. Do not put your time into trying to create parallel alternative monetary systems within the system, because the problem is the entire system. We need to step outside of it, take the rightful and lawful ownership of the entire infrastructure, and do what is morally and ethically correct with it, as a worldwide majority and a collective. And this is what we're doing with the GPMS vehicle. It's your vehicle. It's everyone that gets onto it. there was one other thing I was going to say, Lee, with that just before you speak, but perhaps go ahead. I'll stop there. It will come. Thank you.
Oh, brother, I love what you got to say. I only add to what you've said, and what Rick has said there is take down the system. We're taking ownership and guardianship of the tools, the systems used. This is a better way for me of saying it, is that there's nothing being destroyed here. There's lots being released. There's an awful lot being released, but we can utilize all of the systems without the narrative controllers, without the deception, and we can introduce transparency and just raise all of this out. So we're not taking this, we're not it down. What we're doing is releasing the idea and the concepts that it indoctrinated everybody with, and that just dissipates hell, because hell is a belief. I know that we can talk to many different things to this, but let's talk to that. Those that believe this is normal, that's a deception. So we can let go of that deception and we can make it benevolent. And all of a sudden, we are outside of it now. We don't need to fix anything of it. We need to recognize what it was and change it completely. That doesn't mean to say destroy it. Doesn't mean to say change the way of life. Well, it will. But what it means is we can utilize all of the tools that we've already built, no, not all of them, but a lot of the tools that were already built on our money, by us, our value created them. We are all shareholders, or you are all shareholders of everything on this plane, and this is simply a shareholders vote to take it back and change the board of directors. And it can be seen very simply, or it can be seen with a lot of fear.
And essentially, that's what GPMS is. What we're doing, as Lee just said, with the shareholder vote, enough is enough. How can anyone really accept a system where you have, let's say, 15,000 children dying a day from hunger, when the absolute truth is there is more abundance than anyone ever needs upon the planet? Now, having said this, what we are doing is we've made it simple with GPMS, with that one common goal for everyone to agree on. Do you wish to have all of your rights and freedoms being free and recognized and absolute abundance? Do you wish to agree to that? And this is what GPMS is. It's a worldwide agreement for everyone that is ready and wishes to agree and combine their agreement with the others. And once we have the majority agreement worldwide, it is ratified on the individual and universal level that it is then enacted into law. And all of your old paradigms and false narratives and all of the fear spectrum is over. And this is what we're doing. It's that simple. It's everyone coming together to agree on these two important things that places everyone into happiness, love, harmony, and peace. And this is why we sit back, it is that simple. And we sit back, we say, why are they not agreeing to it? This is your get out of jail free card, if you will. And why don't they want it?
It's the fear of it, the mistrust, isn't it? They don't trust freedom, because again, you look at a prison, and I'm not going to talk to it as Stockholm Syndrome and these things, they're going to be dismissed because they're distortions too. But when you've been in a prison all of your life, when you've been in a prison cell, a box of survival, where you're constantly having to search to just survive, to seek just to look after yourself and those around you, anything outside of that is kind of scary. And so when we say about absolute freedom, if this is all you've known, then you're quite comfortable in there. But the doors are open. There are no prison walls. There is purely freedom and heaven and all of these things. All of the fears and all of the narratives about, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? They don't exist once you walk out there. They only exist inside here, and they keep you trapped in your old prison, where small perspectives are seen. And there's no blame in this, because you all had to do that to get through this. But now's the release, and open the door. There's nothing to fear out there. Don't listen to that telling you all of these complications. But again, this isn't a blame to anybody. This is simple statements. And those complications will be released. The more you listen to this, the more despair will come in. The more you will realize that listening to the complications leads to despair. And this is your choice then, as to which you release the complication or maintain the despair. And you know, we can see it all bubbling up to a point where all of this fear has to be released. We walk with courage. You walk with courage. You have no choice. We think that there's this free will, but really you must and you will do your highest. You will walk your highest, whatever that is, but it starts with courage. So there will be courage, and that bypasses all of those lower frequencies of anger, fear, and all of these things. Once you hit courage, you then straight into acceptance. And these things are all frequencies and energies that have an amplitude, well, a magnet, what's that? They amplify by magnitudes, your energy. People speak to vibrate higher. And I went into early doors, I went into some fear about how do I vibrate? You don't vibrate. You do, but look at it differently. Fear, low. Love, high. Do you love yourself? How much do you love yourself? How much can you define that love? What does that love mean to you? Have you ever tried to define love? What is love? What does love mean to you? And when you find out what's important to you and not to the outside world, then you've really got a duty to honor that, haven't you? But carry that with some virtue. Try to walk that walk. See what it looks like. See what new choices and new things open up for you. Like making decisions you wouldn't have even thought possible before. These kind of concepts open up the universe to bring you what you need.
Thank you so much, brother, with that. Yeah. You know, I've been putting out the topics. Is there anything you wish to say? Put out a topic.
No, I don't know what, I mean, I can't even think what we've gone through. You know, I like to work just in the moment. So
in the now moment, yeah.
Yeah. Where are we? We covered a lot. Impacted a lot. Again, we can speak. The thing is, we can go into different areas, but they may like water down the you know, once they can cause more questions. What we've done is kept it. We've gone and expanded it and brought it back. Maybe enough for this one, brother. And we'll see if there's any questions come back in about what this, what that, what the other, and add to this rather than try to impact this one now. Maybe. How do you feel?
Yeah, I concur with that, brother. What I feel also, you and I have mentioned in the past, very shortly, or perhaps in the near future, we anticipate Lee will do perhaps a GPMS on some frequently asked questions and some of this as well, perhaps, you know, in the future, so we can elaborate more on the dynamics of GPMS and give it to give it simply to the questions to the best of our ability. What I wish to say is that, you know, I'm saying right from here, GPMS is inevitable for the planet, and everything has been orchestrated upon the planet divinely for this effect going forward. And this is, you know, I use the term rapture. It's mentioned in the Bible, but rapture, really, it's an upliftment. And this is what's occurring. It's an upliftment in reality and consciousness. That is a rapture. And so you can identify with it whatever way you wish, but everyone, you know, watching, but yeah, it is a rapture. We are in the prophetic times, you know, this has been written. And I need to say that I believe this time is integrated into all, let's say, past religions, beliefs, texts, documents, or what have you, prophecies, legends, well, not legends, prophecies. And so, you know, we are in it, is what I wish to say. And it is from I know it is divinely. I know what's occurring upon the planet, and perhaps others might not know this, but I share it openly to let you know, because neither I nor Lee or any of us would be here, if this wasn't so. We would never have got this far. So at least that tells you there's something else very good at play.
Thank you, brother. I love the messaging you give, because mine is slightly different. I say it's physics. It's inevitable, because this guitar string's out of tune and it's been tuned. Everything's rising, and all you got to do is look at frequency rising, and disharmonics cannot stay disharmonic. They must come to balance, and all of this is ongoing. It's inevitable. This is GPMS, and the release, humanity choosing to release themselves, is irrevocable. It's inevitable. It's irresistible. All of these things are going, because frequency is rising, and it's spoken to in many different ways. And I love the beauty that Rick can bring into that divine nature. It's just beautiful. But all of the truths that we can speak to align to the same thing. They are not separate. They don't create individuality, they create unity. So all of these that we speak to from different perspectives and different sides all join in the middle. That's not what you are used to. You're used to separation, right and wrong. We find common ground because it all has a solid common ground. All we've done is extrapolate from them, and we speak to the same thing. So beautiful, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. We're being absolutely realistic here with what we're saying as well. And we're creating that. Love, light, and gratitude, brother. And we'll see you soon.
Next time.
Peace until the next time. And unity. This is unity and not a Mason symbol. It means togetherness, unity. Let's say with the Masonic symbol, if you will, they wanted to put a evil connotation on it to again cause separation, but this is unity. So love, light.
Oh, go on. No, I was going to say, I thought you'd finished that. I'm going to say with divine authority. We got this. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Love, light, and gratitude, everyone, and have a beautiful morning, day, or evening, wherever you may be.